Hey lovelies, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, please don't hesitate to push that like button and subscribe and leave a comment, okay? Join the club so that you don't miss any of my content. Hey, I did promise you a part 3, right? So this is a part 3. I'm just gonna be quick. There's nothing much to talk about. It's just my experience of how the interview went. So with that said, guys, let's get to it. Obviously, if you did watch my first video, you already know how everything went. If you haven't watched my video, just take a look at the video. Guys, if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my laptop just for the quick notes that I took so that I don't forget to mention any. So the interview was around 1:30. I got there around 12:30 and we drove out in the parking lot with my husband and the kids. And with that time, I took that time to review the civics questions before the interview started. So basically, when you get there, you're not allowed to go in the building until it's your time for the interview, which is 15 minutes before your interview time. So they won't allow you to go in. So once I got in, there's the security checkpoint, and obviously because of the COVID, they check your temperature. That's what they did. That's all they did actually. So they checked my temperature, and then I went through security, and then they call you, whoever is next, and then they give you a number. That number, you'll hold to that number where an officer will call that number, or they will either call your name. My officer actually called my name. So when they called my name, I was just sitting there looking at the questions, I was just reading, guys. I think I was overthinking all this thing, and my husband was just telling me, Yvonne, stop overthinking this. It's not that serious. And it was actually not. So guys, believe in yourself. Don't stress about it that much as long as you do your research, guys. So I really did my research. I just went through YouTube channels, which I'm gonna share the link of some of the videos that I watched. I'll share the link down in the description box. So with that said, interview, guys, the interview is done privately, so it will just be a one-on-one, you and the person who's interviewing you. The requirements that they need is for you to answer questions from the civic questions. They will need to test your knowledge on English writing, your reading skills, and your understanding as well. So the civics questions, they go through the US history, the US government, and also their values. So guys, you need to really study hard for this, okay? Especially if you're new here, you didn't go to high school to learn about the history of the United States, so you need to actually read and study hard for this, okay? A quick note, what I discovered before I went for this interview, there's actually 2 versions of the civics questions. So there's the 2008 version and there's the 2020 version of the civics questions. So depending on the time that you submitted your N400 application, that's what determines what sort of questions that you will get. Since I submitted my application before December 2020 last year, and I got the 2008 version of the civics questions. But if you submit your application, obviously this year, because it's after December 2020, you're going to get the 2020 civics questions. So what I did once I discovered that, I had to go on YouTube and look at the different videos of different questions that are for the 2008 and the questions for 2020, and they're all the same, guys. So these questions for the 2008 version, there's 100 questions, and in those 100 questions, the officer is required to ask you 10, and in those 10 questions, you're required to answer 6 questions. So once you answer 6 questions, they will stop asking you more questions. My husband printed the papers for me, so print out, they're all online, guys. So the 2008 version, that applies to you depending on when you submitted your application. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to tell you. If you did apply for this N400 and you submitted your application before December 2020, then your civics question is going to be the 2008 version. I think I'm clear enough now. And if you submitted your application now this year, the version of the civics question is going to be the 2020 version, okay? So make sure that you check your invitation letter. It will state on the side like the day that you actually submitted your application, and that will determine which version of civics question that you will get. Okay. So those are the civics questions. They ask you 10 questions from the 2008 version, and you're required to answer 6. And then from the 2020 version, there's 128 questions in that version. Okay, and in those questions, they will ask you 20, and you're just required to answer 12. So you guys, if you're going for your interview this year, you're required to answer 12 correctly. So for me, I was required to answer 6. So it's very important for you to guys study hard so that you don't have to go back again and do this again. You know what I mean? So I got there. The officer called me in. I was asked to stand up and then make a promise that everything that I'm stating is the truth and nothing but the truth. And then they ask you to give them your documentation, which is, they did ask me for my driver's license and my green card. And if you have a new green card or an old one, so you give them both. Okay. And then they tell you to sit down. So guys, follow their instructions. Don't just go there and start sitting down before they tell you to. Okay. Just be calm and just follow the instructions. Okay. So got there, gave my documents, told to sit down. Guys, don't cross your hands. Just do as you would do when you go into the interview. Don't look like you're trying to be the boss of the place, you know. Don't look too relaxed or slouching, you know. Okay, so when they're asking you questions, try to be as confident as you can. I was extremely nervous, guys. And when they ask you questions, if you do not understand, please ask them to clarify. And if you do not know the answers, stop beating around the bush. You can actually tell them you're not sure, okay? And then they will ask you the next question. But just keep in mind, you're supposed to answer 6 correctly to pass, okay? What they did is they started reviewing my N400. Once they're reviewing that, they also testing your understanding of you speak good English and you can understand it. So they can ask you yes or no questions. My officer, he asked me yes or no. They didn't test me on the vocabulary. Like, let's say one of the question is, were you involved in trafficking drugs? Were you a prostitute? Were you involved in genocide? So they might test you your vocabulary and ask you, what is genocide? Do you understand what genocide means? So you have to actually understand this. Don't just cram it, okay? So make sure that you review your N400, guys. I would suggest to print it out because that's what I did. I printed out my form and I did go through the whole paper, and the officer asked me everything on that paper. Where I am from, what's your nationality, where do you live? So you have to make sure you know this. And then they asked me about my husband. They actually asked me when he got his naturalization. So you have to make sure to know these things, okay? And then my interview lasted for less than 15 minutes. So it varies. If you have changes to your form or you need name changing and all that, it may last a longer time. And then testing your English skills, where they will ask you to read a sentence to them to see how you're actually reading it and if you're reading it correctly. They will tell you to write a sentence for them. They will take a look at it if you're actually writing it correctly. So those are 2 things. They will tell you to write a sentence and then they will tell you to read a sentence. So that's what I encountered. There's exemptions to people who are 65 years and older. And if you've been a citizen for over 20 years, you're only required to answer 6 questions from the civics test, and you don't need to take those English tests and all that because obviously you've aged here. You know what I'm saying? And then, guys, oh my God. Questions, the questions that they're asking you, do not expect them to give you multiple choices. They will just be asking you questions and you to answer. They will not tell you if you answered correctly. So if you see that they're going past 6 questions, if they keep asking you questions and questions, it means some of the questions you didn't get right. You're only required to answer 6 questions right. Okay, so once you answer 6 questions right, they won't go over that. Okay, and then they told me, okay, congratulations, you passed your interview. And I was like, yes. And there's actually one question they asked me. The officer asked me, who was the president in World War II, and I was so confused whether it was Wilson or Roosevelt. So I actually asked him, I'm not sure if it was Wilson or Roosevelt, and he was so kind and so nice. He told me, just take a guess, and I'm like, I think I'll go for Roosevelt, which I wasn't sure. You know, they don't expect you to be like, you know your thing. I mean, I'm not from here, but hello, I was cramming the whole thing up, but please make sure that you have an understanding, okay? So I did say Roosevelt, and he was right because he stopped at 6 questions and he said you were right. So I did pass it, which I was so excited. If you've seen my past video, I was jumping up and down. This was exciting for me, okay? Just to go through all that. And I just thank my husband. Guys, make sure you have someone to practice with. If you don't know how, it's okay. You can practice, you know, with the mirror, looking at yourself in the mirror, watching the YouTube videos, because that helped me a lot. I will share the link down in the description box below so that it can help you. I thank God for my husband. He really was helpful. He stayed up late and helping me out, questioning me, like, see if I have the knowledge. And there was a point he's like, guys, just tell them that you can make it, because there was a point I was like, do I even have a clue? I'm like so confused. What is it? World War I, World War II, Civil War? I don't know all these things. But he was so patient with me. I could see in his eyes he was so tired, but he was just there with me. You know what I'm saying? He's just my number one fan. And guys, pray. I prayed for this guy who was interviewing me. I said, God, the person who's going to be interviewing me, let me a good person, a person that I can understand, especially the verbal, because some of y'all Americans, your accent is just so deep. Like, I'm like, what did you say? But I thank God that I could understand, and I prayed for him to understand my English. It's not easy, this English. Anyways, guys, that's what I went through. I took the oath the same day. So the oath, what happens in the oath, guys, this thing, because of the COVID, guys, make sure you take your mask. You wear your mask all the time. Even when you're talking to the interviewer, you make sure that you're loud enough for him to hear you. If he cannot hear you, he will tell you to repeat, and then you make sure that you're loud but not too loud, okay? Gauge your talk. Anyways, so the oath is in the same place. And because of COVID, you're not allowed to have any families over. So it's just you and the people who passed the interview, okay? And we got our little flag, and yay, we're citizens. So guys, I am an American citizen, okay? Watch out, this lady is American. Anyway, took the oath the same day, gave us a couple of forms that can help us to apply for the passport later on or the same day. Other than that, I think I did cover everything. Please, if you've gone or if you're going for this interview and if you're watching this video, please share your comment on how your experience was with this citizenship interview. And also thank you my lovely people for your support and taking your time just to watch my videos. I really appreciate the support that you guys have been giving me. And if you're new here, please do not hesitate to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any of my content or when I upload any new videos. So with that said, I will see you on my next video. Peace. Love you guys.